Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So this week's blog is entitled Commonwealth v. Donnell. This one's kind of a fun one. There was a law case that took place in Massachusetts last week that resulted in a dismissal of charges against a defendant who was in a possession of a firearm without having a concealed weapons permit. Well, it turns out Mr. Donnell could not have a concealed weapons permit in Massachusetts because he's not a resident of Massachusetts. He's actually a resident of New Hampshire. He does have a concealed weapons permit in New Hampshire. He was driving into Massachusetts and evidently at one point in his journey decided it would be appropriate to begin imbibing alcohol. This resulted in him getting pulled over for a DUI. Well, during the interaction with law enforcement, the law enforcement officer came to understand that Mr. Donnell, not a Massachusetts resident, was carrying a firearm, and he was subsequently charged with having a firearm concealed on his person without having a valid license. Mr. Donnell essentially demurred at the trial court, saying that the restriction against carriage in Massachusetts is antagonistic to the Second Amendment and under the Bruin analysis fails. The trial judge agreed. Now, this sets the stage for potential national reciprocity. And you've heard me talk before about the idea that you can't have a bifurcated civil right. All right, when you're in one state that you live in, you have Fourth Amendment protections. When you travel to another state, you don't lose your Fourth Amendment protections or some of your Fourth Amendment protections because you happen to be in another state. And yet with the Second Amendment, you have a right to keep and bear arms. Well, when you're traveling in a state that doesn't recognize your CCW, you only have a right to keep arms. You don't have a right to bear them. This is antagonistic towards the Constitution, and apparently the trial judge agreed with that analysis. Now, it doesn't have any controlling legal authority. If the state of Massachusetts decides to appeal this ruling, that can get interesting because then it would go before the First Circuit Court of Appeals. If the First Circuit Court of Appeals agrees with the trial judge, we now set the stage for national reciprocity from a judicial standpoint, not from a legislative standpoint. And frankly, that may be the easier and quicker way of getting there. We'll have to see. In any event, read the blog. I think you'll find it enjoyable at the very least. As always, train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.